How's everyone doing? Everybody cool? Are you ready to get back to it? Alright, this panel is called Viewpoints, Different Communities, Same War. Since Richard Nixon first deemed drugs enemy number one, the war on drugs has transformed our nation's communities. The impact of the failed drug policies in America has shaped the way different minorities view the drug war, society, and drugs in general. Through recent books and films such as The New Jim Crow, written by Michelle Alexander, and The House I Live In, directed by Eugene Directy, audiences have been given a small glimpse into how the war on drugs has affected the different ethnic communities in our society. Today we will be discussing how the drug war has affected different ethnicities based on personal experiences of people from those ethnicities. On the panel we have Madai Diaz from the Cannabis Career Institute, Dougie Hansen from the NAACP in Clayton County, Thomas Elliott from Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, and Ebony Knight from the Normal Women's Alliance. My name is Greg Klein. I want to thank all the members of the panel for being here today. I would also like to thank you for coming to the second annual Southern Cannabis Reform Conference. I will ask the panelists to answer two questions dealing with the war on drugs and how they have affected their ethnicity as a community based on their own personal experiences. So Madai, I'll start with you. And based on your experience, how does the Latino community view the drug war? How has it affected them, and how has it shaped their perceptions of drugs and society?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I want to start off by saying I'm Mexican-American, so I'm kind of going to speak more to that, obviously. One of the things that's most important to know, I think, is that it's a fact that the American government is actually very well aware that a lot of the marijuana that goes into California comes from Mexico. And not only that, but our own President Obama is the one who has supplied drug cartels with the weapons that are now causing even civilian wars in Mexico. So I think that's very important. It kind of came to me because I was thinking about, I have a brother in Mexico and he is in a region right now where it's very dangerous to just be there because of how the drug cartels are trying to control the whole area. So that's one way that Mexico has been affected by this whole drug war. And the other thing is that from my own experience, I have a twin sister. She's a medical assistant, so we're kind of on opposite ends of this issue. She comes from her, education and works in a clinic, works with a doctor. We have debates between me and her. She doesn't like it, but she's starting to open up more and understand that I'm not a pothead and I am someone who is informed and not just opinionated on this issue. So when it comes to the facts, I have made sure that I do my research. I know what, all this issue encompasses. So also, I was fortunate enough to be able to go out to California recently and attend the HempCon in San Jose. And when I was out there, I was actually staying with my older brother. And my older brother did not want me to attend the HempCon. He did not want me to go. He did not want me to be involved at all whatsoever because it's stigmatized. So, it's very hard when you're trying, that you're trying to do something that's going to have a positive effect on your community, on people who need this medicine, who do not know the truth about marijuana or cannabis. Marijuana is just a Spanish term for it, okay? And when they first passed that Marijuana Tax Act, they called it marijuana because everybody already knew that cannabis was used in so many extracts, so many medicines. It was in the pharmacopoeia. That was very well known at that time. So if you actually go back and you really get to the very bottom of it, it's all interest. People have money, they, like you said, money makes the world go round. So, when it comes to people like me and you, we don't really matter, it doesn't. So, for me, it is a big issue. Just for me to be here today, my family knows that I support it, and at first, it was very hard for my mom to even understand that me dealing with anxiety, I had to let her know one day clear and let her know I'm not going to lie to you anymore, I'm not going to go to the doctor, I'm not going to take those medicines, I'm not. And, they still feel like marijuana you're looked at as a drug addict. You are. And it's funny because my older brother smokes cigarettes, My oldest brother is an alcoholic. So for them to talk to me and tell me that what I do is wrong, you really have to look at it and say, now is the time for us, our group of people who care so much about this issue, to spread that information, to let them know, what, you cannot be opinionated, you must be informed. And the government, the media, they're not going to tell you the truth. They're not. So it's up to each and every one of us to take that initiative. And I don't know, I feel like I went off topic a little bit, but that's my background.
Thank you. Doug, we'll ask you the same question. Based on your experience, how does the African American community view the drug war? How has it affected them, and how has it shaped their perception of drugs in society?
Well, it's such a complicated issue, and there's so many different factors that could lead me to say so many different answers to that question. So I hope that the words I say can be a representation of the community, not only one individual, and our community is complex and there's a variety of different perspectives and issues and or ideas of how we can change things. So only from my own perspective of how I feel the drug war has shaped the perception of the community is that we know that we are being targeted by law enforcement. But we haven't, as a whole, collectively reached a level of consciousness where we know the facts. I mean, we have a roundabout feeling that the system is unjust and unfair and disproportionately targets us, but we don't necessarily have it. But
Do they care? Is the question. They know. Everybody knows.
well, the thing is, people do care, but when they have limited information, they can't come to a good conclusion because they don't necessarily have the facts. And so that's why I think it's so important, once people start to delve into the new Jim Crow and understand the historical perspective of what's been going on in this country, and how when Ronald Reagan came in office, about over $1 trillion of programs that were that could have helped our young people with education, with jobs, with all that was diverted away, and it was given to corporations to have tax breaks. And I don't know how many people have heard of this before, but at the end of the 80s, there was the deindustrialization that happened in America, and corporations went overseas. And there was nothing left in a lot of these communities where folks were used for work. They didn't need black labor anymore, so they went overseas to exploit people in other lands. And Noam Chomsky and Angela Davis described this. It's called superfluous. It's superfluous people. It means that there was not necessarily a need for black labor at the end of the 80s, so the community was considered to be useless. Useless in the sense that they could not fit into an economic model to exploit anyone. So education was defunding, and that was the beginning of the prison industrial complex or mass incarceration. And that's what's led us to the point where we are today. Another good information to read is the latest report that came out from the ACLU, the war on marijuana in black and white. And you can see across the country, overt racial profiling is going on across the country. And that will help a lot of folks start to connect the dots. But the perception in the community, I grew up in the church, in the black church, and that my mom played piano every weekend for the choir every Wednesday. And the black church has not necessarily been the most helpful when it comes to addressing these issues, because there's a perception of some preachers that if they were to be on the side of endorsing people using drugs, then it could take away from their moral standing. So I think that once people realize that they don't speak up on the drug war, that if we keep the genocide the way it is right now, where in the United States about 8,000 black men die from the intracommunal violence in our communities from prohibition, if we continue to act like none of these issues are going on and put our heads in the sand, then the church is just as complicit as our law enforcement, as our politicians. So I'm hoping that the church will finally start to wake up and actually apply what's in this book, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. There's the war on drugs is the New Jim Crow. And I could go on, I probably could go on for 5 minutes. And I was worried that I wouldn't have enough information to say.
We'll move to Thomas. Thomas, based on your experience, how has the Asian American community viewed the drug war? How has it affected them, and how has it shaped their perceptions on drugs and the society as a whole?
Based on my experience, talking to my family and friends recently, their stance on it is very conservative. You don't talk about drugs, you don't do drugs, and you obey the laws. Because, older generations moved here to live the American dream, and so it's just all about making money and doing good and just along. I recently talked to my mom about, what she thought, about me being an activist in the marijuana movement, and she really didn't like it, but she definitely, I helped change her mind a little bit. She's definitely for hemp production and medicinal purposes. She just was like, as long as you don't get high, it's okay. and I feel like younger generations are definitely starting to talk about it a little bit more, just because it's in the media constantly. And, I think the Asian American community will definitely come about soon. And I keep talking to people daily in my community about it, and hopefully we can change our minds in the days to come. But that's pretty much where I'm at now.
Thank you, Thomas. Ebony, based on your experience, how do women in the African American community view the drug war? How has it affected them, and how has it shaped their perceptions on drugs in society?
Well, piggybacking off what Dougie said, I'm a preacher's kid, so I know about religion in the black community. And I found, and I continue to see, that with a lot of black people, especially the older generations, but it's kind of scary how it continues on, is that we see the law as God. Like, we believed in when it said, obey those that rule over you. We believe that we're supposed to obey them, obey the laws of the land. We believe that all authority is given by God, and that's just not true. And so I'm sorry to, tear down your symbol of Christianity, but that's not true, because of all authority is obviously not given by God. I say that to say, our families have been torn apart because of the drug war, and because we've been socialized to believe that the government and the law of the land and God are one. So we don't have political prisoners anymore. Now we just have badass Johnny who shouldn't have done that. Or, we don't see that we are being targeted by police. We just say, they shouldn't have done that. I have family members who work in several prisons across Georgia. And the conversation with them is like, do we have the same or use or smoke marijuana or who end up in jail for any reason is like their nose is down at them. And so as long as we're divided that way, I mean, our fathers can be in jail. Now we have even more mothers being in prison for a plant or even for other drugs. But it's just a system of slavery that's been perpetuated through the laws. And so I think that one thing that our community has not done much of is activism. When you look back at the 60s and 70s, anyone who really was a black activist was killed or is today in asylum somewhere else. They're in exile because to be for black people is one thing. Like if I fight for weed, I can live. If I fight for black people, like I can die. Then that's how it should tell I was black and I still think. Okay, thank you. Intercultural communication class here today, guys. All black people aren't the same. Like within this room, if we took all women and put them together, we'd all be different. If we took all black people, like I was raised a Christian, in a Christian home, I went to an all-Christian school, I was the only black person. You take someone else, they grew up in the hood, where we is already legal. So you have my viewpoint of, I used to look at my brother and say, oh, you're such a pothead, like, that's so sad how much you smoke. And then, so it makes me look differently upon a community where you might pull up in my neighborhood in Trenton, New Jersey, and everybody's smoking. You go to grandma's house next door, she got little chunky sacks. Because that is our culture, that was our community. It wasn't that, oh, grandma should be in prison, because that's just what grandma does. But grandma's never gonna have a dispensary. So when I talk to black people about activism, because I know a lot of my colleagues ask me, why won't more black, Ebony, why won't more black people get involved? In our community, it's already legal, number one. Number two, there is a big distrust for the system. Like we don't expect the system to work for us because the system continues to beat us over daily. So, put that in a nutshell, we don't really trust the system. Religion has screwed up our families, but we view the drug world, we would like it to be criminalized and legalized. I have a lot of religious family members. They're just like, oh, I read that, and it should be legalized, but you shouldn't do it. And so I'm like, so who should do it? Is your pastor going to come to the Capitol and do it? Move on. I'm about to get upset.
Question, and then we'll take questions from the audience. With the recent movement of states towards marijuana reform across the country, I want to try to get an insight into how each of your communities views marijuana law reform. So, Madai, we'll start with you. How has the Latino American community taken to marijuana reform? Have they embraced medical decriminalization or legalization, or have they been hesitant to change in marijuana laws?
For the most part, I want to say that the Latino community is very silent on this issue, and not necessarily because it's not important to them, but there are other things that are still not resolved, such as this immigration reform, which is just it keeps getting pushed to the side. Even right now, marijuana is a hot issue. I remember when abortion was a hot issue. I remember when gay rights. So guess what? We always get put to the side. That's the most important thing that is in our community right now. And other than that, when I went to California, I talked to my stepdad, and his nephew got deported for drugs. He didn't tell me what drugs. He just said drugs. And I assume it was marijuana, but I don't know. And basically, his nephew was forced. They beat him and forced him to sign his voluntarily leaving the U.S. So that's just to give you a little bit of an idea of, just what undocumented immigrants go through. Like I said, I have brothers and sisters who do not have papers. I was fortunate enough to be born on this side of the border, which didn't used to be there, by the way. And, so right now, we're not exactly, this isn't the most important thing, I would say, there's a, I don't know if some of you have seen out there on Facebook, there's a girl who had a sign and it said, bleed weed, legalize my mom. Okay, so, you know, not that this isn't important to us, but again, it really comes down to the fact that I feel like, honestly speaking, the Latino community can be very uneducated, very misinformed, and ignorant. So we have, you know, we're kind of in the same boat. We're considered minorities, Black people, Mexicans, you know, the Hispanics, whatever you want to call us, you know. We are put in the same, you know, in the same category. And a lot of times, especially if you're undocumented, how are you even going to get a medical ID card if you do have any issues that you wish to treat with medical marijuana? You can't. You're going to take a risk. You're going to take a risk of, even if you buy it on the black market, even if you go, you get caught with that, you're gone. You're deported, you know? So I think if the reason why the government, the media, whatever, they're trying to suppress and black out that, you know, right now we're all trying to get these things passed. By 2020, every state is going to have a medical marijuana program. And they're really just trying to delay it as much as they can. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to keep control. But if you really look at it, every issue is connected. And if you're talking about your right to use this plant, we're talking about everybody's right to just do what they want with their lives. So that's how it affects my community.
Dougie, same question for you. How has the African American community taken to marijuana reform? Have they embraced medical decriminalization or legalization, or have they been hesitant to change their marijuana laws?
Well, it's my opinion that the majority of the community isn't necessarily educated on the issue. I mean, you have, if you were to talk to folks and say, do you believe in medical decriminalization or legalization? Most folks have other issues that they're dealing with in the community, and they haven't spent a whole lot of attention or time on those specific ways of reform or legalization. But I think if you talk to the millennials, they're open to legalization or decriminalization, obviously, because they're being targeted by law enforcement. If you talk to Generation X or Generation X or Generation Y, I come from the hip-hop Generation X. Everybody in Generation X is for legalization. You know, we grew up listening to Cypress Hill and we've known about the legalization cause for a long time. But generation, the baby boomers. We have a small population in the baby boomers who I'm sure are for legalization, but there's also that large part of the baby boomers who have been indoctrinated with religion and who hold on to old traditions and old ideas, and in many ways continue to blame the victim within our communities. They blame the young people. Why don't they just pull their pants up? Or blame the young people for looking like a thug. But they don't necessarily connect the dots and see that what causes people to use drugs or to abuse drugs is poverty. If this country would address poverty and not blame drug use for creating poverty, then that's the dialogue and discussion and the consciousness that we need to raise. Because if we fought poverty, we would not have people who would abuse drugs. When you have better things to do with your life, when you have access to a job, when you have access to health care, when you have access to education, when you have access to opportunities, drugs are the last thing on your mind because you have things to do. But as they say, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. somebody who doesn't have access to a job and doesn't have anything to do all day, it's easy to go get high, try to escape it all. And like I said, especially since there's so many people in the United States, close to 50 million people who don't have access to health care. For some people, drugs have been used as a way of self-medication to medicate pain. I was going to touch on something else, but I lost track of it. I don't even smoke marijuana anymore. I used to smoke and sometimes lose track of the conversation, but I just did it, you know. I'm a little nervous. But there's one other thing that I wanted to point out, and I'll let the next speaker speak, so take up too much time.
You want one? You have one more thing? Go ahead.
Oh, well, I can wait. I can wait.
Wait for questions.
Yeah, I'll elaborate some more on that.
All right, Thomas. How has the Asian American community taken to marijuana law reform? Have they embraced it, or have they been hesitant to the change?
From my personal experience, it's still not talked about. They definitely, I don't see them having embraced it yet. Their big thing is they don't want to bring shame to the family. But every time I talk to my family and friends, I let them know that, it's going to help our state, it's going to bring jobs, it's going to bring money to the economy, and most importantly, it's going to help the people live a better quality of life. And that's pretty much where it's at right now. And I try to talk to people daily about it, because all we can do is get the word out there, and change people's minds, and get it changed, in the books. So that's where we're at.
I remember. Well, just like we've had issues in the community as far as being open or accepting of homosexuality or abortion. This particular topic has also been used in that way. It's been a taboo conversation, and I'm hoping that the more people will start getting educated and reading, and we got to get it through to the faith community in our communities. I think a lot of the problem is that they're just not educated on the issue. And it is the civil rights or racial justice issue of our time. And it's no longer, we got to have all these creatures accountable, because this is a subject that people are dying every day. And people are being locked up and their lives being destroyed as we speak. So that's all I have to say.
At risk of you getting heated. I said at risk of you getting heated.
Right.
Ebony, how have the women of the African American community taken to marijuana law reform? Have they embraced it, or are they hesitant?
I think they're busy. Or, like you said, and like other people said, they're very misinformed or uninformed. Like when I talk to people, that Normal is a national organization that's been around for many years. When I talk to a lot of black people, they're like, what? Like, y'all be smoking? Or y'all really want to get legalized for real? And it's like, y'all want to do that? Like, y'all do it? And I'm like, this is something that we all can do. Just to let you in on a little secret, because I know a lot of people talk about, we want to end the black market. When you say stuff like that, black people hear you say you want to end the way we make money. Because we don't have dispensaries, many of us, not all, I speak that way. For many of us, we're not going to get a prescription for Marinol, a prescription, even if there was medical marijuana. Because we don't qualify for a medical marijuana program. If you're on Medicaid, you're not going to get medical marijuana. So this issue is very divided, and we care, and I think there's a big push for it to be legalized in our heads. Like, we don't want our children to lose their financial aid for a plan that we know isn't going to hurt them. It's not going to disqualify them from being successful in life, or disqualifying them from federal financial aid. We don't want our sons, if one every 3 children will be locked up for marijuana, and I have 6 children, and that means 2 of my children can go to jail. We don't want our children to, and that's the reason I fight. I'm telling you, I don't care if you never legalize it, because it's legal where I live. Nobody comes in my house and tells me what to do, and it doesn't make me feel unsafe, but it makes a lot of mothers feel unsafe to be able to medicate for themselves and have children. I talked to someone at Chuck E. Cheese, and she was like, I used to, but you know, they're doing drug tests for food stamps now, and they were drug testing her because she had a special needs child. And I'm like, well, how about they give you and your special needs child some weed? Because as a mother of 6, and even with the health issues that I have, according to the government, I don't qualify. I'm from the state of New Jersey. We do have medical marijuana, but according to the state of New Jersey, I don't qualify. And if you don't live in Trenton, New Jersey, if people are not shooting while you're trying to sleep, while your children are trying to sleep, then I don't think that you should be able to tell me if I qualify to smoke weed, because you don't understand what I'm medicated from.
I just wanted to point out that every one of our panelists came up here and gave their own personal feelings on this, based on their own personal experiences, but one thing came up from every single one of these panelists, and that's education. And the biggest thing that we need to do in this room is we need to take everything that we've learned today and everything that we've learned on our own and will learn in the future and educate others about it. Without us talking, no one will talk, and look at where that's gotten us for the past 40 years. So now we're going to take about 15 to 20 minutes for questions and answers with the audience. So if anyone has a question, yes, sir.
My question is for Doug and Anthony. Doug had mentioned that it seems that the millennials are more open-minded than the problem with the baby boom generation, and then in particular with the targeting of the African American community and this disproportionate targeting them and stigmatization. You know, one thing that I'm concerned about is I used to think too that it was the baby boom generation. That's the problem. But you know, being in my generation, when I talk to kids and I talk about this issue, and I see that there are these still deep racial biases. I mean, the trademark mark stuff, with, you know, the anger that I see towards having an African American person, and I still see these underlying racial signs. It seems as if, like, I feel like it hasn't gotten any better, and that there's still those same biases as before. So, do you see that getting any better? Do you see it, like, for the future? How do you see combating that issue? Drastically getting worse.
I'd like to address your question. I see it getting better as I work with a lot of people from different places. As we come together, we can bring people together that would otherwise never come together. Like being some old person, like, oh, we're just best friends now because we just did it. But I think that a lot of people, because I get people to ask me, do you think we need our own normal? Do you think we should, like, we spoke different, we do this differently? And I think it's a perception from the other side because you're not over here. You know what I'm saying? It might be a bowl instead of a blunt, but we don't smoke that differently. We're not as different as we perceive ourselves to be from apart. And I think that if we did even more intercultural communications in schools and gave children an understanding of, like, everybody's not from where you are. And that would even help our legal system, because a lot of our laws are like this. Because everybody's not going to be the way you are. Law shouldn't be based on your opinions, your beliefs. It should be the voice of the people. So I believe the more we continue to come together, and we have a global economy. When we get these people out of these little holes and pockets in this country, places in Georgia, I think things in Georgia will begin to move forward.
Okay, could you summarize the question briefly?
Well, basically it stems from, you know, I'll be having conversations on the topic of legalization, and a white friend of mine will say something about, you know, yeah, but, and they won't really have any logical arguments against it, but they'll say something like, well, yeah, do you think that black guy over there smoking is using it for medicine? And it's just so offhand and racist. And he says this to me because I'm white. But those are real things that people are seemingly on hearing that in the community. So it scares me that mindset is still going to stick around. So that's my question was, how do we go ahead and combat that and change it? Because it still doesn't seem it's such a big problem in my generation.
Well, I just thought it was so important to in my community, out in Clayton, was to have a regular meeting place where we all gather on a regular basis and we talk, we discuss this issue. And the best way to do that is to go get this book. I mean, of all the books that have been written, I believe, on this issue in the past 10 years, besides Angela Davis's work, this book right here, The New Jim Crow. And once you dig into this, you will start to reflect. Sometimes you can reflect within your own life, your own personal situations or circumstances that you have been. I mean, I was racially profiled, me and my friends, throughout the whole 80s. We were.
He likes skin.
Yeah. We were pulled over. We were ordered out of our cars at gunpoint. We were taking pictures of. We were putting the gang files. Once you read this book, you start to realize and see and connect the dots of what's been really going on. And but I think that once we, as a collective, as a class, because in the United States, over the past 35 years, this country has managed to criminalize 65 million people. 65 million. And it goes across all color lines, it goes across all groups. We're disproportionately targeted in and the Black and Latino community. We have been 78% of the drug war has been fought in our communities. 78%. But 72% of the drug use in the country is in white communities. Their communities haven't been targeted. Our police departments across the United States receive funding from the federal government based solely on the number of arrests they have. So it's a quota system. Look at the state of New York. 4.8 million Black and Latino men stopped and frisked in a 10-year period. That's an average of like over 650 plus thousand a year, 1,800 people a day. It's become normalized in our society. This is a historical issue. After slavery, there was Jim Crow. There was the convict leasing system where black life was criminalized and put into a system of you have to work off, you pay your debt, and you work for some mill or some coal company or whatever. It's the same thing that's going on now, but it's the war on drugs. That's what the book discusses in Michelle Alexander's book, is that if once we overcome the war on drugs, that in this nation that was built on white supremacy and slavery, that there'll be another form of racial control that pops up after the war on drugs. So let's say we end the war on drugs. They'll try to find another way. And the thing is that I hope more and more folks start to realize that instead of the new Jim Crow now, we have the new James Crow Esquire. We're fighting corporations. Mass incarceration and the business of punishment is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We're up against the Corrections Corporation of America, the GEO Group. I read the name of another one, SQ4 or something like that. It's the third largest corporation in the world that is in the business of punishment. So the funding of our youth education is not an accident. Learn more, read more about the prison industrial complex. I mean, not the prison industrial, the school to prison pipeline. I got a note filled up. Sorry, long-winded sometimes,
Right, I just want to say one more thing to answer your question. It's not just like from race to race, because we do it in our race too as well. So it's like deep-rooted things that until we get exposure to other people, it's just not going to change.
And I too have read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and she lays out what we need to do, and what we need to do is drastically overhaul our entire system, completely change policies that have been in there for decades that are just tools to put people in different categories, to make it be us versus them, to make other people villains. So it's really going to take people going and voting and going and becoming involved in politics and taking this on a bigger scale, because We've got to take off the colorblind goggles that we put on in the 80s thinking that everything was fine racially and actually look at the problem. And sometimes looking at the truth is going to help you find the solution. And so,
Well, can I add one more thing?
you can.
I'm inspired right now with the Moral Mondays movement. Because you have a collective group of different organizations that are coming together around numerous different issues. It doesn't necessarily have to be one issue on criminal justice. We have folks that are coming together against stand ground laws. A lot of these laws you'll see are pushed through by the American Legislative Exchange Council. It's a giant conglomerate, it's an organization of corporations. There's probably about 200 or 300 corporations on the list. And we need to get organized and start boycotting these corporations. Stop giving them our business. Start developing cooperative economics within our community where we're not giving money to them. Go ahead, sir, your question.
This will be the last question, by the way. I'm sorry.
This is a touchy issue for me because when I was 21, this is 15 some years ago, I was arrested with a lot of marijuana. I was in the legal system. It took me 7 years to get out, but I was in college. I didn't get out of college, and a lot of different things happened. But I'm kind of glad I went through the system, and I was able to graduate from college and everything. But when I got out, I couldn't get a job. And one of the biggest things, the thing that was bigger than me graduating from college, I graduated from Morris College, was being able to expunge my record. Now, it's only a matter of time before we know this is legal, but are you guys also working towards when this is legal, like they had a job fair in Colorado, where people that had prior records with small amounts of marijuana or this, that, and other, will they be able to get jobs? You know what I'm saying? So it can help our community, because a lot of reasons why people turn to different things, because they can't get jobs. I had a degree in accounting, and that first year out of college, I couldn't get a job. I had to disclose what happened to me. Luckily, a black firm hired me in, and I was able to do it. And then, as time went on, I kept getting laid off and laid off and laid off. Another very big, and I had to start my business. But my question to you guys is, have you guys thought about that as well? When this does hit, like I said, that job fair in Colorado was big. They even had a company called Hemp Temps, where it's temporary jobs. You know what I'm saying? Growers, accountants, this, that, and other. Are you guys also thinking about that?
If not, if you're gonna take it,
Well, see, the NAACP and the ACLU and Rainbow Push Coalition and numerous civil rights and human rights organizations submitted a letter to Obama in 2013 wanting to end the war on drugs. Even though that there's some people within these organizations who have been, maybe not speaking out like they should, there's been resolutions passed and people working to end the war on drugs. And what does that mean? The end of the war on drugs means the end of prohibition. And hopefully, we just need to, there's a close set here, we need to continue to educate and let people know in the community and give them access to information. I mean, most people are brainwashed by corporate media. They watch CNN and Fox News, and they listen to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, and they're completely mindless. They don't think critically. We just need to point them in the direction of alternative information, like Democracy Now!, Free Speech TV, other access of media. And then we need to take on a responsibility educating people ourselves.
But that's something you guys consider.
Yeah, I actually, that's what the new Jim Crow is about. A caste system has been created from over-policing and targeting of our communities and charging people with a drug charge or any type of charge. Excludes them from education, from variety of public support programs. So that's what the new Jim Crow is all about. And yeah, at this event that we're doing next week, Friday, over at the Communication tabling, and that gives people who have a criminal record and an outlet to learn how they can clean up the record and access to lawyers.
I know that Peachtree Normal and the Georgia Care Project are both, I don't know what other organizations, but there may be others, that are forecasting and looking ahead at the issues that will occur when legalization or decriminalization finally does happen. Because there will be a lot with people who are currently in jail for certain amounts of marijuana and things of that nature. My nonprofit organization, Project Freedom, we do assist people out of jail and people with records in getting training as well as getting a job. So if you know anyone who would be interested or a candidate for that, you can get some information from me afterwards.
And I hate to cut this off, but we're out of time. So once again, I would like to thank the panelists for coming out.